Hello. Welcome to the Productive Wellbeing Show. Today is episode number 33, and I am beyond excited to be joined by the amazing Dinah Liversidge. Let me tell you a little bit about Dinah. So Dinah is a global speaker, a coach, an author, a mentor, and the creator of the no box thinking that she shares with audiences around the world, usually in person and most recently online. So let me bring Dinah to the stage. As you are joining us, let us know where you're joining us from. Say hi in the comments. If you're watching on replay, say replay. And if you've got any questions, put them into the question box. We can see you. So without further ado, Dinah! Woo! I'm adding you. This is so exciting. Welcome to the stage.
Delighted to be here. Thank you so much for asking me.
You are so welcome, lady. This is so awesome. So guys, please let us know where you're joining us from, because we really want to know. And we want your questions as well. Right. Oh, Simon is joining us from Edinburgh. Hi, Simon.
Hi.
So as I said at the top of this, Dinah is a global speaker, and her talks, usually are an hour long. So we've got 20-ish minutes today. And I have asked Dinah to really sort of focus in on 3 areas that she believes will be most impactful for us based on navigating the current crisis, our careers, our business, and our personal point of view. So the first area, Dinah, is really around the impact of language and what that can have on us.
Absolutely. And, it took a massive change in my life to realise just how important the language that we use in our own head is, and also how much of the language we hear around us we choose to adopt and own and make part of our story. In my mid-20s, I had a really serious car accident. I was 26. In fact, it was the day after my 26th birthday. And my husband, John, was also 26, and we had a 3-year-old daughter. And the surgeon sat on the end of my bed, looked at my husband and said, "Your wife is never going to walk again." Without even taking a breath, really, John looked at him, shrugged and laughed and said, "You clearly don't know my wife." Now, language like that has the most incredible impact, and it certainly did on me. I was in that wheelchair in the end for just under 11 years, and not one day of that time went by where I didn't believe that I was going to walk again. The main reason for that was because we challenged language all the time. So when that doctor told us his version of our truth, we chose not to believe the language he was using, and in fact decided it just didn't apply to us. And at the moment, it's really easy to focus on the negative language and tell ourselves stories like, "I'm not good at change," "I feel overwhelmed." And these bits of language that kind of become habit to us tend to become our truth. So I would say the first thing at the moment is think about the language that you're hearing and that you're repeating to yourself, because it's the conversations that go on up here that have the biggest impact, often much more than the conversations we have with others.
So just give us some examples of the kind of language that we're hearing right now that you think it would be beneficial for us to reframe.
Okay, so a perfect example then at the moment, I would say, is that everybody keeps talking about nothing is ever going to be the way it was before. So I'd like you to think honestly, have you ever had 2 days in your life that were exactly the same? Are you the same this year as you were last year? Are you the same as an adult as you were as a teenager? God, I hope not, because I was obnoxious. And that is the key thing. Nothing has ever stayed the same. And it's deciding that that can be an exciting and positive thing rather than, oh no, nothing will ever be the same. And while it's really hard at the moment, because so many of us now have been touched by what's going on or know somebody who's lost someone, and no way is this about saying dismiss that, it's not important. Instead, it's about saying which bits of that conversation do I carry forward in here and repeat to myself. So yeah, you know what? It's never going to be the same. And that's great news.
Amazing. And the other one, I guess, is the worst recession ever.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and the word ever, the first thing I always do with the word ever is take that away and say so far. And I do that with lots of things. Some are negative, some are positive, but I do that with lots of things because ever feels so definitive. Will I ever walk again? The answer was no, but I did. So ever, they do this kind of big emphasis of a word. The worst recession ever? Why is that helpful? Why would we play that language back in our heads? So instead, what I'm trying to focus on at the moment is a day-by-day financial position personally. Thinking about world recession is a great way, almost actually, of leading into the second thing I would say that we need to be thinking about, which is our focus. Where we choose to focus our thoughts at the moment are going to dictate how we get through what's going on. And if you focus on most timelines on social media at the moment, they are just full of panic and fear and lots of anger and lots of misinformation, which is not applicable to you, but because you're focused on it, a bit like the language, it becomes your truth. So one of the great, simple, easy things that I learned at the start of this situation was you can mute people in Facebook. I love my friends, I adore them, but there are a few people I know who love a drama. They seem to thrive on it, and that's not me. And I know it's not healthy for me. So I decided my focus needed to be on my positive friends, on my friends who are real with each other. So we have days where we say, God, I really hated today. That was tough. But what we don't do is constantly share, have you seen this awful story? Have you seen this dreadful thing that somebody else said about somebody else? Mute that, get that out of your focus, and instead try focusing on the things that lift you up. And we take this into a business level quite often, you know. Focus, I've often found, is what leads to people comparing themselves to others. And in life, in business, in partnerships, in relationships, that's never a great idea. By all means, set role models. By all means, have people who you aspire to be like. But when you compare your timelines or your truth of what's happening with other people, you have to remember, first of all, you're only getting their version. You're probably only getting the highlights. But the other thing that happens is you question what it was that led you to do what you're doing already. So making comparisons with other people is never a healthy idea if it leads you into those conversations again in your head. She's doing more than me. She's doing better than I am. He's getting more notice on his broadcasts than I do, or whatever it is we're worrying about. And actually all that does is take our focus away from us and what we were driving to achieve. And instead we're off looking at somebody else whose timeline is not our truth.
It's storytelling as well, isn't it? We start telling a story.
Big time.
We haven't got all the facts.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll fill them in with ridiculous things that we make up of, these assumptions we make about others. And then we use one of my least favorite words as a result, the word should. I should be better than this.
Let me just interrupt this because somebody in the chat has written a really good point. So they've said they've been on mute for weeks, but they're actually feeling guilty about that. So can you just speak about that? Because I think that's a huge thing for people is...
Do you know, I love that they've shared that with us. So thank you for sharing that. And know that you are not alone in that. There's a lot of people who are just turning off the sound. They're listening, they're observing, but they don't want to speak out. Now, why is that? Well, for each of us, it's different. But get rid of the shame or the guilt associated with that, because that doesn't serve you. Okay, that really doesn't serve you. And there are lots and lots of people on mute, observing, processing this information. And that absolutely is the right thing to do if it's the right thing for you. When we compare ourselves to, it's always me who doesn't speak up, I have the opposite. I have to say to myself, you maybe should stop now. You've said too many things. And that's my silly story in my head. Oh, I've got nothing, nothing they haven't heard already. But actually, these are the focus words that kind of pull us out of our real truth. If your comfortable place at the moment is to be muted, listening, then that's the right thing for you to be doing. If that was who you were before this crisis, don't expect yourself to be somebody different now. All these people at the moment, Abigail, who are saying, I haven't achieved enough. I should have written a book. I should have, there's that should word again. I'm a really anti on this. You know what? Getting from the morning to the night, going to bed with everybody we love still around us, that's an achievement at the moment. So
and I think
don't feel you have to or should speak up.
Just to add in my sort of 2 pennies worth on this one is that for me personally, all that matters is how I feel. And if content is not making me feel uplifted and energized and excited about my life, then I just bury my head in the sand. And burying my head in the sand is what keeps me sane. It keeps me in my lane. It keeps me focused, and it keeps the blinkers on like a horse. So a lot of my mentors are saying, stay in your own lane, keep the blinkers on, mute people, unfollow people. What are you doing? What are you here for? Focus, 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 focus. Because this situation right now is dreadful, don't get me wrong, but they come along and they happen all the time. And so
yes, exactly.
This is where sort of speaking to somebody like Dinah, who has been able to repackage, what would have been life ending for many people into the solid foundation that she's built on and used to share with others is absolutely unbelievable, and is proof of what's possible when you change the stories you're telling yourself and the way you think and the language you use, etc., etc. Amazing. Super, super helpful. Guys, we've got one more question with that I'm going to ask Dinah. I would love to ask any of your questions. So if you're on Facebook, you're watching us live now, or LinkedIn, you've got a question or you've got a comment or anything based on the amazing stuff that Dinah shared with us so far, please let us know and we'll try and get to that. Otherwise, we'll get to your questions after this. And if you're watching on replay as well, we'll be going on to sort of the platforms to answer people's questions and to sort of chat further. So the final thing that you wanted to speak to us about today is what are you labeling yourself? So the labels, which I guess is the stories as well. So.
Yeah, I mean, labels to me play a huge part in how we identify ourselves to others, but also how we see ourselves up here again. At the moment, there's a lot of people who've been furloughed or who've even lost their jobs. And with that job went a job title. It's kind of a British thing, but I think it's also an international thing that when we introduce ourselves at an event, we give our name, and then we say what we do. So you take that label away from somebody and it can feel really, really strange. If I don't have my label, what am I? Who am I? How do I define myself to other people? But I'm actually not a very big fan of labels. I'll give you an example of one of my favourite stories about how labels really matter. So in case my getting out of a wheelchair hadn't been enough of a challenge, about 6 years ago, I had a series of heart attacks and then 19 hours of bypass surgery. And about 4 weeks after I came home, I went for the first time to see my amazing heart nurse, Helen. And I walked in and sat down and did a funny little grin. And she looked at me strangely and she went, "What?" Because obviously my grin was at something I'd noticed. And I said, "Helen, I'm really sorry, but I'm going to have to ask you to take your badge off or we're not going to get on." And she looked at me very strange. She said, "Why?" I said, "Well, your badge says that you're a heart failure nurse, and I don't do well with failure. Please, will you take it off?" And I had to see Helen every week for 2.5 years. And it got to the point after about 5 months that I would walk in the door and she would take the badge off because she didn't want the conversation.
Oh, fantastic.
One day, eight months, I think it was, into our relationship, I go in and she's sitting there doing this. I went, "Oh, what am I supposed to be looking at, Helen?" She went, "Look at my badge, look at my badge." And it said heart specialist nurse. And that was one of my greatest ever senses of achievement with labels, because actually she still wears that badge and she wears it permanently, and so do all the other heart support nurses.
Amazing.
Because they understood.
High five to you.
They understood the word failure. Really? I'm supposed to focus on failure? It's not going to work, is it? So to have a heart specialist, totally different. I'm seeing the best person to help me with my heart. So I would say, take a look at 2 types of labels. What labels have other people given you that you have willingly worn? You know, Helen jokes with me that she was a willing player and hadn't realised until we talked about it how important that was. So are you being a willing player in just accepting the labels that other people give you? They're quite possibly not appropriate. They're quite possibly not actually who you are. So take some of them off, and then also maybe embrace different labels. Now, one of my favourite things I do every morning when I wake up, I have a condition called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. It's a connective tissue disorder, which means I'm in pain all the time. And when I first wake up in the morning, I have to tell my joints, it's okay, I'm going to be nice to you, we can get up slowly. And I choose my mood for the day. And to me, that's like picking the label I'm going to wear today. This morning, I picked excited because of you, because I was really excited about getting the chance to come and talk to you this morning. But I've had days where I've picked, pensive. I've had days where I've picked thoughtful. But by choosing that mood in the morning and really owning that choice, I have decided to label myself in a different way. And I would really encourage you to do that. And with the label perhaps you take when you're talking about your professional life, try taking that away and see how you feel when you say instead perhaps, "Hi, I'm Dinah Liversidge. I'm married to my childhood sweetheart and my daughter is the thing I'm most proud of in the whole world." That's who I am rather than what I do. And it tells people way more about me.
Yeah, because if you stop doing what you do, or you have to stop, or for some reason it changes, it then
Are
creates.
you still the same person?
I am what I do.
Yeah, but actually you're not. And that label really, really can be quite a burden. And I look at some professions. It's funny, my husband was a roofer. for over 30 years. And he always used to say, I hate socializing, because as soon as we're at a party and I tell anybody what I do, they just want to talk to me about the problems with their roof. And when we moved here to our little cottage in Wales, where we've been now for 5 years, I met one of my neighbours, and she told me she used to be a doctor. She's now retired. And I said to her, oh, I bet you got what my husband got. Everybody wanted to talk to you about their ailments. And she said, no, I was lucky. I was a sexual health specialist. So when I told them that, they all didn't want to talk to me at all.
They went to the other room.
That was brilliant. What a way to look differently at that label. So yeah, have a bit of fun with it too.
Well, it's like Brene Brown that we were speaking about her before we got started, how she used to say to people when she got on the plane, depending on if she wanted a conversation with them or not.
Yeah, I talk about shame.
Yeah. How are you?
Up to you.
Yeah. I just have to say one thing that came to me when you said about how you choose your mood. I literally could visualize you going to a shelf of moods and pulling the mood off, that they were all in jars, and it took me to the BFG.
I have to do this. Sorry, camera appalling, but look.
No way. This is crazy. Wow.
This is a big thing for me. Jars of words. This is actually my my acknowledgement jar. So in here are words on all, as you can see, different colours, of course. The words that come up during a difficult time that actually lift you up. And I put them in there. Some of them are things people have said to me. Some of them are things I've heard other people say. And when I'm having a down moment, I put my hand in that jar, take one out, read the word, and I reconnect with that moment. I
love it. Me and my sister also do this. We call it the joy jar.
Oh, love that.
I think that we should do a separate training on this for people, because everybody is loving this. But yeah, you pick your mood. People say this is an amazing story. We've got so many of your friends in the house.
Thank you, guys.
On Facebook. Let's just shout some people out. We have got people from all around the world as well. Amazing. We've got Carol Prince, Kathy Van Mastage. I shouldn't say surnames, I'm really bad at it. Bernie Benton, Sheila Sharma, Anel Martin, Kathleen Drum, Matthew.
Oh my goodness, look, we've gone so international, isn't that fantastic?
International. And then on LinkedIn, we have got Lucy Brazes joining us there, Julia Schmidt, Andy Parks.
Fabulous. Thank you all for
joining us. Johnson. This has been so awesome. I feel like we could talk for ages.
Likewise.
There was one other thing that came to my mind, but just the BFG jar got me so excited. I
love how much we have found we have in common, Abigail. It's been great.
Yeah, it's crazy. That's what I was going to say. We have been so upbeat here, and I love that. And that is our jobs. We are uplifters. But I just want to really go to the stage that we've just dropped something. The stage we've both been at, where we first of all hit the adversity. So when that worst happens, can you just for a few minutes talk about, like, it's okay not to be okay? And
oh yes, thank you for bringing that up, because this is so important. There are a lot of people who assume, because of my mindset, that every day is a great day. That every day I walk around being joyful for life and grateful for what I've overcome. I have days where, frankly, I just want to stay under the duvet. I had one day this week, and I have a gorgeous badge from my friend Alice that says, I don't want to adult today. And here's the thing. Change on this scale is like grief. When I was told you're not going to walk again, I lost someone. I lost the Dinah that did crazy mad things with her beautiful hubby and gorgeous daughter, and went out and was active and physically, took mad risks and loved all that. And I couldn't do any of it. Did I get up and choose my mood and go, yeah, I can conquer the world? No. In fact, one of the most important things is to be honest about the days where you just don't know what to do. We used to have one Sunday a month in our household. Bear in mind, Hannah was 3 and she was 14 when I started to walk. So most of her growing up, I was the mummy in the wheelchair. And one Sunday a month was called Why Me Day in our house. And everybody got to moan. Why me? Why have I got to have the only mummy who can't take part in sports day? Why me? Why have I got the wife that used to do crazy jumping out of, obstacles with me and take me up mountains, and now I have to push her around in a wheelchair or carry her up the stairs to bed? And I could say, why me? I was on a journey and a path that I was so sure was my direction, and now I've got to go over here. Nobody told me this was going to happen. So we have to acknowledge it. I'm known locally as the crazy woman that screams in the woods. We own three acres here. We're so lucky to have found this beautiful place. And I stand in our woodland and repeat the words from 4 Weddings and a Funeral, which obviously I'm not going to do now, where he's on his own before the service. And I've done that at the top of my voice. I have screamed at the sky angrily and said, what the heck, universe? This was not meant to be my story. So here's the thing to me that makes the big difference with this. Be real about those days. They do not mean you are going to plummet into the depths. They mean you're like everyone else. They mean you're human. They mean that some days it's just...
Got goosebumps.
But that's what it is. And we're so tough on ourselves. Do you know, a few weeks ago, I did a Facebook Live where I admitted to all my friends, and it's normally so positive and uplifting, but I admitted we were having a tough time. 17 people individually wrote to me and said, pretty much the same language, thank you for doing that today. I needed to know that you're also in need of support. You gave us permission today. So it's more than okay not to be okay. It's essential. And if you're not having the odd day where you're saying, I want to throw all my toys out the pram, but, binge watch some rubbish on telly and eat a tub of ice cream, you're not being honest with yourself.
Thank you for sharing that, because I think people always ask me as well, like, how do you stay upbeat? We don't.
No.
But I just have a default where I don't like to share when I'm not feeling uplifting. But I think it is important that we have these kinds of conversations, and it's also that we stop. I shouldn't feel like this. I should feel like that.
Yeah. Every time you hear yourself say the word should, you need to ask, according to whom? According to whom? Who told me I have to be perfect? Where does that come from? Challenge your language, because the should word usually is either from way back and you're not that person anymore, or it's from somebody who frankly is not living your life and doesn't get to tell you what you should be feeling.
Yeah, amazing. Well, guys, you can clearly see we could carry on this conversation for another hour. But Dinah, where can we find out more about you?
The easiest way to connect with me is to go to my website, which is dinahliversidge.com, and all of my social media links are on there. And I'd absolutely love to connect with you on LinkedIn too.
And you put we'll put all these links into the comments as well. Well, guys, it has been like a pleasure and an honor to have Dinah on the show. She's going to hop on, and we're going to hop on to social medias and answer all of your questions. Until the next time, stay safe, stay well, keep washing your hands, and I can't wait to see you next week. Oh, and happy 1st of May.